What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be doing an interview with ProperArtist. He is a fantastic oil painter, and I'm excited to show you guys what he is all about. So, let's get into it. Welcome, everybody, to the Artistic Minds podcast, and I have with me today ProperArtist, aka Colin, aka. Anyways, all right. So, Prop, if you want to introduce yourself and say your whole spiel, go ahead.
Like I say on my stream, my name is Prop. I'm an oil painter that deals specifically in nerd culture, art. I mean, I do all kinds of stuff. I can do all kinds of stuff, but I mainly deal in nerd culture stuff. I really like Alex Ross and Drew Struzan and a little bit of Adam Hughes, and there's a sprinkling of Dali in there for some of the stuff that I do. And when I say that, some people but I like that kind. I like doing that kind of blend of style, but across all things nerdy, not just comics, not just movies, games, or anime, like all of those things. So I try to paint stuff like that, like the Logan behind me. Like the Logan behind me that I was doing for a client. That's the type of stuff I do. Yeah, she asked me to paint her husband is Logan, because that's his favorite character, or Old Man Logan. That's his favorite character. So she sent me a picture of him, and I turned him into it.
He's a pretty great character. So we're going to roll into the first question, which is, what got you into doing oil paints and drawing and all that stuff in general, art in general?
Art in general, I've been drawing ever since I was a kid. Well, my mom likes to say ever since I was old enough to hold a pencil, I've been doing art. I've been drawing, and I used to draw like a lot of Thomas the Train and stuff when I was a kid. And Spider-Man, the animated series, X-Men as well, like a bunch of those shows on Fox Kids when I was growing up. And I've ruined so many VHSs from back in the day because I would find the perfect spot and pause it and then rewind it if I didn't get it right, and then continuously do that over. I ruined so many tapes doing that. Just from there, I would get around people who also were really good. I thought were really good at art and knew stuff I didn't know, and would ask them questions and watch them. And I just is a thing that I've done over time, really through various just meeting people. And then when I had the fortune to meet a teacher that kind of changed the course of everything else. I'll say I wasn't necessarily in the greatest frame of mind considering where I was at that point in my life, but I had a teacher for an alternative mediums class. This was the second college that I had went to because my best friend ended up leaving the school and going to this one. So I ended up going over to the same thing with him because we had this thing that we were going to be in it together. So plus I wasn't really feeling the other school in general because of the way they handled stuff and the way teachers were and what they valued in art versus, what people can bring to it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they were more or less, if you've ever heard me say anything about there's a lot about the fine art world I don't like, how a lot of them, at least in my experience, didn't think the nerdy way of doing stuff was a viable resource at all. And if it ain't old school, it ain't about it. That's where that whole way I see some of that stuff comes from, and why I used to be so angry about people's opinions on that kind of stuff. I mean, obviously you still see people get upset about fan art stuff, but you can't look at an Alex Ross piece and say that, that isn't high quality and crispy. There's people who can't even touch that level of skill.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah. So whenever you were going through the like finding a teacher, was it like at a school or?
He was happened to be one of the ones that I had in second one that I went to, alternative mediums, and we went through watercolor, acrylic, and oil. And I, painted with all the mediums. But when we got to oil, something just kind of clicked. It was like I could do the graphite stuff I'd been doing, but because it took so long, not took so long, but because there was so much detail that you could put into something, because everything just kind of blends together. It's like something just clicked right away, and I just lost myself in it. It didn't help that the teach. I mean, it helped in my benefit, but I mean, like, it didn't help as far as time away from other stuff. It didn't help that the subject matters that he gave us were so open ended that we can make them personal if we wanted to.
Yeah.
So we had a project on movie monsters or whatever. I think it was movie monsters or something like that. And he didn't say how we had to portray them. He just said, pick a monster and make a painting for it. So I picked the Frankenstein, and in the Frankenstein piece that I did, I used it as a representation of a person, the different parts of a person that come together to make a Frankenstein. And I used myself as that stand-in with like fear and everything else. It's like a whole little mental thing, and I put it on canvas, and that's when everything gets kind of started from there. Of me realizing this is something that I really really like. And he never really, like, he'd come around and say stuff like, maybe you want to try using a palette knife, which I still hate to this day using. But he would like come around and say little stuff like that to see where I would go with it, because he could tell I was liking it. In the classes I would have with him, he would encourage me to do a painting as the final project for stuff every time after that. So that's kind of where the kickoff of getting into oils came from. Up until that point, I hadn't done any painting at all. I was all graphite all the way. Like some colored pencil here and there, but
Yeah.
and like maybe some finger painting when you're a kid, but nothing like this is something that I'm gonna do. You know what I mean? At this point, it was just that's all I'm doing is sketching, but this turned everything else around.
But I've never had a formal art teacher like you have. So it's more like I'm not teaching myself, but I'm using resources to do get my teaching wherever I can.
It's funny because the teaching that I'd say that I've had in more ways than one, it's always been, even though they weren't big classes, they were heavily weighted in one direction for trying to get points across for shit a lot of the time. And not only that, it kind of felt like it was just more, here's your packet. This is what the client wants. Like it's instructing you to learn how to work for a client, not instructing you to learn the techniques of how to explore stuff, to figure things out on your own. I had like one teacher at that school, as far as art was concerned, that for real would just kind of give you overbroadened things and just kind of let you go your own way with it. And then at the other school, he was the other one. But I've never really, outside of those two, just being the catalyst for letting me figure stuff out, I've never really had someone to really teach me anything. I've just kind of watched people all my life. And if they know something or they can get something to work just the right way that I don't know how to do, and it's something I want to do, I'll figure out how to do it. Because it's kind of like now, if I look at a painting of someone whose work I admire, for some reason, I don't just see the painting anymore. I can see the brushstroke and the process of how they layered it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then when you watch them, it's the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. Like, especially since I've been doing it, I'll look at people as like values, you know, and like planes
Yep.
of the face and all that stuff. Whenever I first started, I was, tracing circles around a cup and then adding eyes and all that stuff. And I think I have a sketchbook somewhere around here with some of my first drawings in it that I did, not including like, kids' drawings and stuff, when I first started getting serious about it. And it was like, it's night and day between then and now. It goes to show that if you apply yourself and pay attention, it'll help in the long run. Next question is, what's a dream project for you? That, like, what's something that you would want to do? Anything, anything that you would want to do.
I'd love to have my art attached to official Spider-Man / Venom stuff. Like I'd love to be able to say that I did like a oil painting for like a Spider-Man or Venom cover, and not just some throwaway Spider-Man. I would love for my name to be. I'm not even going to say big enough. I would just say respected, because at that point it means that I have worked hard enough and gotten my skill to a point to where people respect me enough to put me in that regard, to where I can work on my favorite two characters in comics across the board. I can do a comic book cover with both of them on it in oils. That would be dope. That's probably the dream project. I mean, I have stuff that I want to do, that I want to paint, like scenes that I want to do and everything like that. But if there's like a dream project of anything that I can do, it would be that.
Okay, yeah. So you want to be like the Lee Bermejo of Spider-Man. I don't know if you read his Batman comics, but they're perfect.
I guess you could say that. Yeah. But I'd say like more on the grounds of how Alex Ross is with an appearance.
Okay,
if you see his art on a comic, then you know for a fact it's about to be crispy.
You're like, oh, that's Alex Ross.
Yeah, like you know for a fact. That's what that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be awesome. The next question is, how long have you been doing the art thing? I mean, you said ever since you were
the oils specifically.
Oils specifically. How long have you been doing that?
In 2000. That was in 2000. Like I think it was late 2013 is when. Yeah, I think it was late 2013 or isn't 2013 is when I got introduced into the oils. And then it was kind of off and on because I had that class where I learned it, and then I think I had another class the semester afterwards that also got me into doing some painting. But then after that, it's like all my classes just had nothing to do with traditional painting anymore. So it just kind of became a why would you introduce me into something so great?
Yeah.
And then take it away from me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. It's like
school became not for me, and it felt like I was trying, because I would always have something would come up at the beginning of the semester, and then I would miss a couple of days and then have to come back, then make everything up, and then still be great at the end of it. So I'm like, if I don't even have to try as hard in the beginning, and then at that time the students that I was with just seemed like didn't nobody really give a shit. Like, if I feed off competition and people being, hungry to do something, and you know what you're capable of doing, if no one else around you gives a shit, why would you give a shit?
Like, if you're not hungry, you're not going to get fed.
Exactly.
That's just it. What did you want your artistic legacy to be? But you kind of touched on that with the Alex Ross thing.
Yeah.
So let's turn that on its head and say, in 10 years, where do you see yourself?
In 10 years, shit. Hopefully, in 10 years, I see me and Ashley, obviously, having a kid by then.
Yeah.
All things considered, hopefully, fingers crossed. And in a good situation to where it ain't no issue. Because my whole big dream is to be able to make sure I can provide solely whatever I need to deal with, whatever we need to deal with, so she can go back to school and not have to really work or nothing. I don't want her to have to be over stressed out about doing stuff with school and going back to work. So I want to be able to have consistent clientele to be able to make more than, I'm not going to say more than a decent, but a comfortable living to where if anything were to happen, we're good. Like I want to be to the point where the customer base is far more consistent. I mean, it's consistent now, but you know what I mean. Not just in originals, but in prints. And I want to be way faster than I am now. Like I want to be able to get the stuff that it takes me a day to do done in a couple of hours.
Oh yeah, for sure, man.
10 years, I want to be in a place where we're comfortable.
I wanted to let everybody know that this whole entire interview is going to be linked on my Patreon page. If you guys want to see the entire thing and rewatch the entire thing, that's going to go on my Patreon at the lowest tier. It's like $5 or something like that. And also the link for that is in the, if you're watching on Twitch, it's the panel below, and if you're watching on YouTube, it's going to be the description. We'll roll over to the next question. It's kind of going to be a long one for you, but can you describe your process from start to finish on how you do a commission?
Start to finish, usually when someone asks me, you mean like the whole process of them emailing me and everything?
I mean, yeah, sure. If you want to go through that extensively.
Well, first off, I only ever require half up front, because it's a trust between both, but also it's laying the flat base. You have to put in that investment, and because you're not doing the whole thing, then it is what it is. But there are people who I've had that give me everything up front, and that is a hell of a recommendation. That's a hell of a thing for people to do, because that just signifies that they believe wholeheartedly in your work. And I hope, like, that's what I mean when I say to build a level of respect to where maybe, who knows, because I only require the half, but more and more people, based on the stuff that I do and how I work and everything, end up doing more and more of that just because they respect the work so much, that kind of thing. Because they know what they're getting. But once they do that, I sketch stuff out sometimes if they ask for it, not all the time. But I'll usually get a bunch of references together of whatever they need, whatever they're asking for, or whatever they want. It could be as little as like the way light hits something, to as little as like the way the sky looks in the background. I have references for literally everything. So I'll take whatever idea they gave me, and I'll start looking up everything that I need, shuffling everything together in my head to figure out how I want this to work. And once I get everything together like I want, I just go on the canvas. I usually do my my raw or Van Dyke Brown, raw umber or Van Dyke Brown layer, because they dry incredibly fast and they spread real easy. So you can kind of use it like graphite if you want, but it's more or less, because I watch Val dudes do this. This is what I meant when I say I've never really had anyone really teach me, but I've watched people and asked people questions over time, especially on Twitch. Like, I've learned far more on Twitch than I ever did when I was in school, outside of being put in the direction towards, doing oils. And that one tip about shading up to the line instead of hardlining everything, at least with pencil, were like the two things I really learned. But it was the one that used to talk about the loose painting with your elbows instead of your wrists. Monkey on Strike. Val Dudes is the one that showed me the stuff about the Van Dyke Brown layer. And Cosart is the one that showed me about using a ruler or a maul stick so you don't get your hand all in the paint. And Miss Cookies was the one that started using gloves. So I learned something from each of them, kind of, sort of, in that way. But I'll sketch it out like that, and then just start adding details on top of details until it's done. Sometimes it takes a day or two. I've had stuff that's lasted me a while. This Monster Hunter piece I'm doing for Remez, I've been doing for like almost a year and some change because I switched it up once they added more dragons from the DLC that he wanted added in there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then just waiting for it to dry in spots because it's so big. When you put that much paint on a canvas, it takes way longer for it to dry than it normally would.
If you could change anything about your artistic career, what is the one thing that you would change?
As much as I know everyone says, whatever they change something. As much as there are things that I'd like to say, yeah, I'd really wish I'd have done this better, or taken this more seriously, or done this a certain way. I wouldn't change anything because the fact that everything, good and bad, has lined up the way that it is, whether it be a mistake or a victory, you change any of those things about what's happened, and I might not know the people that I know on Twitch, or as you said earlier, the John Cena follow might even happen to change something about what I did back then or what I do now. So I'd say nothing. I wouldn't change anything about it.
What would you say is your greatest success and your greatest failure?
Greatest success? I don't think I've had my greatest success yet because I'm going to constantly keep seeing something that I'm going to be, enjoying more and more. Like when I did the Miss You 3000 one, I did that because it was around the anniversary of wait, no, it wasn't around. Was it around the anniversary? No, yeah, it was around my birthday time. It was about to be my birthday time, and my dad passed away when I was 17. So like every so often, you know how shit gets whenever you get around certain dates and stuff.
Yeah, for real.
So like I painted that as a in 3 days. I painted that. And usually something like that would take me there was a time something like that would take me a week, maybe 2 weeks to do something like that. But it took me 3 days to do it, start to finish.
Let's go to... All right. Yeah, so now we got successes out of the way. What do you think your greatest failure is?
All the stuff that I have in the closet that I have not finished or just gave up on.
Yeah, the next question is, what or who inspires you to do what you do?
As far as in the art industry, the people that I named earlier, Alex Ross, Drew Struzan, Adam Hughes, with a little bit of dash of Dali, heavily influenced my style. There's something about all four of those people and the way that they work that I'd kind of a little bit influence from. And of course, there's going to be more people. The more people I come in contact with, the more stuff that I'm able to be experienced, towards all of that stuff, But for now, those are probably the four in the big. Also, a little bit, I sprinkle a little bit in there because you get easier access to his stuff because of Twitch. So I'd probably throw him in there because there's some techniques I've definitely picked up by watching him do pencil and ink work that I've used in oils, like his splatter stuff that he started doing with cards. I would dilute the oil to where it's loose enough, and then dip a brush in there and start doing that. And it was just something I saw him do that I figured this could probably work if I did it this way. So I'd throw him in there too, maybe Eric Canetti a little bit, because he was like that too. But as far as inspirations, just as a whole, definitely my mom, because she's supported the shit out of me since I was a kid. She's always been about wanting me to do this art stuff, and she's had my back, even to this day, on anything and everything that I've needed and wanted to get done. She's my business partner because I made a decision that I want to keep her as close as I can in this. The other being my dad, because I lost my dad when I was 17 before I graduated high school. He
Yeah.
was, a businessman and stuff too. And one of his biggest slogans was potential unlimited. So if you ever hear me say that, he patented that, by the way.
Oh, nice.
So if you ever hear me say that on a stream or you see me tweet that out, that's where that comes from. And it's funny because my catchphrase of simply phenomenal and instantly classic is just an evolution of the same thing.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's like that's one of my biggest inspirations in doing it, because even though it wasn't ever really something that he outwardly told me that this was, something that is going to be great for you, because art wasn't a big thing back then.
Mhm.
He was super proud of the stuff that I did, you know. So he's a big influence and a big inspiration on the stuff that I do. Same with my grandparents and Ashley, because without her, she's the one that made me flip the switch and decide to do this, because I had a car accident on my way to work in 2015. Yeah, that same year. Uh, and during that break is when I lost the bet to Ramez. And after I had painted a little bit, and he ended up raiding me, and other people seeing me, and there are people that I know to this day through Twitch because of that whole incident. When she realized that I had a lot more fun and energy, and I was, way less miserable about stuff and angry, because just stuff at the job I was dealing with at the time and health wise wasn't necessarily great. Nothing of my own accord, mind you. It was just a bunch of additional stress and stuff.
What are your favorite brands of paint, brushes, canvases, and all of that?
Uh, Honestly, again, whatever I can get my hands on at Michael's is pretty much what I get. But from my experience, gambling brand has been good. Windsor Newton is usually always pretty great. I can't ever go wrong with Windsor Newton, honestly, up and down the board. There used to be Grumbacher here, but they don't carry here anymore, so it's gambling in Windsor and Newton, pretty much. But Grumbacher was a buttery smooth oil paint brand. If I've ever had any of theirs, that's definitely a good brand. A little expensive, but it was a good brand. I haven't tried them, but Val Dude swears by Vasari paints. But they got that's where you start getting to 50 plus and $100 a tube kind of stuff.
Uh, this or that questions, and we're gonna fire them off.
Okay.
So, X-Men or Avengers?
I have to go Avengers because Spider-Man.
Yeah. Um, Batman or Superman?
Batman, hands down.
Oh yeah, for sure. I know you got a running joke that you never paint Superman on your streams.
Yeah, I'm never painting. Fuck Superman. I can't stand Superman. I get it, but I don't like it.
Yeah. This is not a this or that question, but favorite color?
Blue?
Soup or salad?
Soup.
Pizza.
Hands down soup.
Pizza or tacos?
Tacos. This is gonna sound real weird, but Ashley makes them a lot, so.
Okay.
Tacos.
Nice. Which of the three Borderlands, or not the three Borderlands games, which of all of the Borderlands games is your favorite?
Two.
That's a pretty good one. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you guys enjoyed it, please go drop Prop a follow, sub, whatever you want to do on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I will link all of his socials in the description below. As always, I'm Brandon, and I'll see you next time.